The fundamentals of rise and fall of country and nation. Foreign Languages Publishing House, Pyongyang, Korea. Juche 103. 1. Preface. As everybody has and loves his parents, man has and loves his country and nation. That is because individual's destiny is in the destiny of a country and nation. Numerous countries and nations exist on the earth, with their own history. This history is the history in which each member of a country and nation has shaped his destiny. The history has witnessed the development, prosperity, collapse, misfortune, creation, struggle, or bloody tragedy of the members of the countries and nation. People, therefore, are keenly interested in the destiny of the country and nation. Many people desire their nations to be dignified, proud, and strong nations that gather envy of the world people. Many countries are now struggling to achieve independent development and prosperity against all sorts of domination, subjugation, and challenges of the foreign forces, under the banner of independence. On the contrary, however, some countries suffer from setbacks, without finding the correct way of their development. 2. What decides the rise and fall of a country and nation? Which is the true way to the development and prosperity? To go straight on the way of shaping the destiny, all countries should have a correct ideology that tells the direction of development like compass. Those nations that have not correct ideology are the same as the drifting ship without knowing the directions. Regarding the guiding principles of the Juche Idea as compass, we'd like to think about the rise and fall of a country and nation and find out the true way to national prosperity. 3. Contents. 1. Firmly adhering to the independent principle. 5. 1. Juche and Flunkyism. 6. 2. The lifeline of the modern politics. 17. 3. Economic crisis and its solution. 28. 4. The lesson of Kosovo War. 39. 2. By applying the creative method. 50. 1. Among the people. 51. 2. Best is one's own way. 58. 3. Placing the main stress on ideology. 70. 1. Giving priority to remolding of ideology. 71. 2. The first siren of the ship at Tangkon port. 81. 5. 1. Firmly adhering to the independent principle. It is the desire of humanity to lead an independent life. To follow independence is the trend of the time no force can check and hold. Independence serves as the banner of struggle, attracting the progressive peoples who love the justice and truth. The guiding principles of the Juche Idea mention that the independent stand must be maintained in shaping the destiny of a country and nation. The independent stand finds its expression in handling all problems arising in the shaping of the destiny of a country in its interests, according to its own independent judgment and decision, and dealing with all the problems by itself in a responsible way. This stand fully conforms to the people's fundamental demand to live independently, free from all sorts of domination and subjugation. The principle of maintaining the independent stand contains the principles of Juche in ideology, independence. 6. Independence in politics, self-sufficiency in economy, and self-reliance in defense. Now, we discuss one by one. 1. Juche and Flunkyism. December 28, 1955 is recorded as the day of great importance in the modern history of Korea. On this day, great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung published the work on eliminating dogmatism and formalism and establishing Juche in ideological work. In this work, he stressed on establishing Juche in ideological field. What is the meaning of this, and why is this important in building a new society for the Korean people? Establishing Juche in ideology means thinking and practicing centering on one's own country and nation with the awareness of being master of his destiny and taking the viewpoint and attitude of solving all problems by his own wisdom and strength. In other words, this means to have a mind of one's own. As in the old saying, all is not lost that is in danger, one can win victory, when he fights with a mind of his own against whatever dangerous enemies and difficulties. 7. When establishing Juche in ideology, one can independently and creatively solve all problems arising in shaping the destiny of a nation his own way and by his own strength, not with others' way and strength. If one does not establish Juche in ideology, he is bound to be influenced by flunkyism. Flunkyism is the idea of servility to worship big countries. Flunkyism makes a man look up to big countries, without believing in him. If a man follows flunkyism, he becomes a fool, and if a nation follows flunkyism, it will ruin. Flunkyism was the big ideological poison that made the Korean people suffer from the misfortune of ruined country. Flunkyism was absent in the period of Goguryeo dynasty, which was powerful and strong in the east in Korean history. After the fall of Goguryeo dynasty, the corrupted and incompetent feudal rulers began to be influenced by flunkyism, following reactionary Confucian doctrine, and the flunkyism did harm to the independent national development in the end of feudal Joseon dynasty. Flunkyism influenced feudal rulers outwardly worshipped and obeyed the big countries and inwardly were engaged in factional strifes, when other countries made capitalist development. And when 8. Japanese militarists and the European and the US capitalist powers stretched out aggressive tentacles, the feudal rulers tried to survive depending on foreign forces, instead of depending on the people's strength. As a result, when pro-Japanese group took upper hand, Japanese army guarded Korean royal palace, when pro-Russian group was on the top, Russian army guarded Korean king, and when pro-Qing group ruled, Qing's army guarded the palace. Royal palace was guarded by the foreign army. Who, then, will defend the country, and what will happen in the national destiny? Owing to the flunkyism influenced corrupted and incompetent feudal rulers, the Korean nation that has been proud of 5000 years of its history was deprived of its sovereignty in a day by the Japanese imperialists and was forced to tolerate the destiny of the ruined nation. At the inception of his liberation struggle, great comrade Kim Il-sung drew serious lesson in the after effect of flunkyism and made strenuous struggle against it. The outdated ideological remnants including flunkyism do not easily give their way to the progressive ideology. Flunkyism that remained in the minds of the people. 9. For a long time did great harm to the Korean people who advanced for independence in the period of anti-Japanese armed struggle to achieve Korea's independence, in the period of building a new democratic Korea, and in the period of post-war socialist revolution. The harmfulness of flunkyism was revealed in the 3-year-long severe fatherland liberation war against the US imperialists and was intolerable in the period of accelerating the socialist revolution and construction after the war. In these days, the flunkyists and dogmatists tried to do all in a foreign way depending on them, being affected by national nihilism with which they think their own things are all bad and all the foreign things are good, turning their face away the specific Korean situation. The harmfulness of these ideas was serious in the field of ideology. The flunkists and dogmatists blindly imitated foreign voices and mechanically imposed foreign things on the people, instead of studying and explaining the policies of the Workers' Party of Korea and neglecting our party's revolutionary tradition and the Korean people's history of struggle. There were the picture of foreign landscape in a people's army rest home instead of beautiful mountains. 10. Such as MT Kumgang and MT Myohyang in Korea, and the diagrams of foreign 5-year plan instead of Korea's 3-year plan at a local democratic publicity hall. Worse still, the factional flunkyists in the party hampered the party building and its activities by all means. They misused authority and spread bureaucratism within the party and made vicious moves to break the unity of the party. They even hatched a plot to overthrow the party and government in league with revisionists in big country. Without liquidating flunkyism, it was impossible to advance even a step in the post-war socialist revolution and construction. In this situation, great comrade Kim Il-sung published his work. In his work, great leader comrade Kim Il-sung said, "What is Juche in our party's ideological work? What are we doing? We are not engaged in any other country's revolution, but solely in the Korean Revolution. This, the Korean Revolution, determines the essence of Juche in the ideological work of our party. Therefore, all ideological work must be subordinated to the interests of the Korean Revolution. When we study the history of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the history of the Chinese Revolution. 11. or the universal truth of Marxism-Leninism, it is entirely for the purpose of correctly carrying out our own revolution. In his work, he mentioned the detailed phenomena of flunkyism and dogmatism that severely appeared and their harmful effects, and establishing Juche in all fields of revolution and construction, including the field of ideology, after decisively liquidating them. After the issue of the work, the DPRK made great efforts against flunkyism and dogmatism in all fields such as party building, government building, army building, economic construction, external affairs, etc., while giving priority to the struggle of establishing Juche in the field of ideological work. This struggle accompanied the struggle against modern revisionism and factionalism. In these days, the Workers' Party of Korea flatly repudiated the moves of great powers who overtly interfered in the party work on the side of the anti-party, anti-revolution factional elements, the arrogant moves of the modern revisionists who imposed to compromise with the US imperialists, giving up the anti-imperialist, anti-US struggle and their pressure to bring the DPRK into the CMEA they created under the slogan Integrated Economy. 12. Through this serious political and ideological struggle, the dangerous and harmful flunkyism that leads the country and nation to the ruin was removed from the minds of the people, and the fundamental change occurred in the people's ideological view and thinking method, with the result that Juche was established in the field of ideology. The Korean people, therefore, could advance straight along the road of Juche and socialism they have chosen, believing in their own strength in the interests and demand of themselves. If Juche was not established against flunkyism at that time, the present Korea dignifying itself as political and ideological giant, the Juche Korea that gathers envy of the people over the world, is inconceivable. Why, then, is it important and primary in shaping the destiny of a country and nation to establish Juche in ideology? In one word, that is because it is ideology that controls all activities of man. The people in each country are the direct agents in shaping the destiny of that country, and their activities are defined and controlled by ideology. Establishing Juche in ideology, therefore, is the precondition for meeting the requirement of the Juche. 13. Idea in all social fields such as politics, economy, and defense. For this end, one should arm himself with the correct ideology that shows the way of shaping the destiny of a country and nation, with the awareness that he is the master of his destiny. The correct ideology is the Juche idea. On the basis of the principle that man is the master of everything and decides everything, the Juche idea tells the truth that the people in each country are the masters of the destiny of the country, and they have the strength for shaping the destiny. It awakens the people to being masters of the destiny of the country and enables the people to have the view and attitude of solving all problems depending on the strength of the country and nation. At present, the Juche idea grasps the hearts of hundreds of millions of the people for its scientific accuracy, truthfulness, and invincible vitality. All the countries and nations that aspire after the justice and truth choose and accept this idea. The reality tells that it is none other than the Juche idea that illumines the way of the development of a country and nation. In order to establish Juche in ideology, it is also necessary that the people in each country should be well 14. Versed in their own things. This means that one must be well aware of his country. Over 200 countries exist, sharing different histories, languages, natural and geographical conditions. This being the case, if one does not know his own things, he cannot work for his country and nation. Without knowing the history, custom, and feelings of his country, one cannot do anything in the interests of his own people. And without knowing the natural and geographical conditions of his country, one can neither build industry suiting to the situation of the country nor do farming suiting to the soil of the country. That one does not know his own things means that he does not know his strength. The ignorance of his people and the natural resources of his country makes him blind to his own strength. This makes him unable to build the prosperous country by the strength of his own people. In the early June, 1957, great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il was studying at the Pyongyang Middle School No. 1. Before the botanical examination, some pupils were reviewing the variety of fruit cultivated by a foreign botanist. Listening to them, Great Kim Jong-il asked them. 15. About Korean apple. The pupils were dumbfounded. Neither textbooks nor teachers taught them the varieties and characteristics of the Korean apple. Kim Jong-il spoke to himself that they do not know because they were not taught, and worse still, it is unnecessary to know as it is not the homework. Looking out a window in deep pondering, he said in a low but serious voice that they know in detail about the biological characteristics of fruits of the foreign country they had never been to, but do not know nor want to know the Korean apple they eat normally. Saying this is shameful, he explained the advantage and characteristics of the Korean apple. He further said that the goal of studying the foreign apple is to know and make better the Korean apple. He said that if they know the foreign things only without knowing their own things, they would harbor illusion about foreign country, neglecting their own things. Saying that they must study with their own spirit, he added that they must learn for the Korean Revolution and for the better and more rapid development of their own things, even if they learn one thing. Correcting their wrong thinking method in time, he led them to grow to be reliable Korean talents who would support the country and nation with the deep knowledge. 16. Of their own things. It is important in establishing Juche ideology to develop the national culture and have high sense of national self-respect. A saying goes, backwardness leads to humiliation. Only when we actively develop our culture, science, and technology and enhance the people's cultural and technical level, can we establish Juche ideology, removing the idea of depending on others. National self-respect is the mental power that ensures national prosperity. Without it, we can neither live independently nor defend the national sovereignty and dignity. Those people who have high sense of national self-respect can fight at all costs to defend the national dignity and destiny against all sorts of humiliation and thus successfully shape the destiny. It is especially important for a small country to have high sense of national self-respect. Small as they are in the size of territory and population, they should have ideological feeling that their nation is not so bad as others but their own national things are best. This enables them to love and develop their own things. If not, one would follow national nihilism and flunkyism to cast away his own things, accepting others and expecting foreign aid, neglecting his own strength. Those countries that try to 17. Achieve the national prosperity by the help of foreign aid will be ruined instead of making progress and prosperity. Small as it is, the people of the country can be the genuine masters, not salves, when they have strong self-respect against flunkyism and submission. Juche and flunkyism. Flunkyism leads to ruin and the establishment of Juche ideology leads to national prosperity. Those who really love the country and nation and wish their prosperity must keep this truth of Juche. 2. The lifeline of the modern politics. Many people are deeply interested in politics. The destiny of a country, nation, and individual depends on politics in that country. When the progressive politics are enforced, the country prospers and society develops, but when the reactionary and conservative politics enforced, the country falls into misery, causing social evils. Human history knows numerous cases of this. Bad politics is more dangerous than tigers. This is the saying of Confucius, a famous philosopher and politician in ancient China. 18. In 516 BC, Confucius was passing by the foot of Mt Taishan with his disciples and saw a woman crying on the ground. The tigers killed her father-in-law and her husband and then her son. Confucius asked her why she did not leave the dangerous place. She answered that the place is good to live except the tigers because she did not need to pay heavy tax there. Listening to this, Confucius asked his disciples, keep this saying in your minds. Do not forget that bad politics is more dangerous than tigers. This is not past story. The present world knows many suffering countries because of wrong politics. At present, rampant is the arbitrary politics of the imperialists headed by the US that is running wild for hegemony in the world political arena. Under the pressure of this arbitrary and dominating politics, some countries enforce servile politics, eventually failing to defend their national sovereignty and dignity and putting their destiny in the play hands of the foreign forces. humanity aspires after the genuine politics for the people. What kind of politics, then, is a genuine politics? What is the lifeline of the modern politics? 19. It is independent politics. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il said, "The masses' destiny is likened to the destiny of their country and its people as one, which is guaranteed by the politics of independence. The independent politics is the politics that defends the people's national independence, sovereignty, and interests and that relies on the people's strength. In other words, it is the politics that makes all policies according to the people's demand and the specific conditions of a country and solves all problems depending on the people's strength. The independent politics defends the national demand and interests against depending on or following the foreign forces and places the demand of the people to the fore, regarding them as the masters. In modern politics, the firm maintenance of independence leads to national prosperity, materializing the people's independence, but flunkeyism and dogmatism lead to national ruin. Look at the DPRK that shines in the world political arena with her independent politics. Her politics is thoroughgoing independent politics. Regarding the independent politics as firm political creed, great Comrade Kim Il-sung and Comrade 20. Kim Jong-il, the well-known political veterans led the Korean people's struggle to victory with thorough independent politics in the whole period of their leadership over the revolution. The Korean Revolution started and led by great Comrade Kim Il-sung was conducted in the acute conflict and struggle that decide independence or subjugation from the inception, but he always maintained the independent principle. After the war, with scientific analysis into the people's desire and the country's concrete situation, the great leader confirmed the matured subjective and objective conditions for the socialist revolution and was preparing the thesis on socialist revolution. In the early 1955, a man of high ranking in a foreign country preposterously said that the thesis mentioned that the Korean Party's decision to transform the urban handicraftsman in a socialist way was to introduce capitalism. The revisionists blamed our party's policy for agricultural cooperativization, saying it is subjective. They further said that the European socialist countries make socialist revolution without thesis, so Korea does not need to have thesis. At this, the great leader said that what is wrong to have thesis, declaring that we do everything in our way. 21. Whatever blames of foreign forces are. He added that there is no law that we cannot do because others did not do. A week after the argument with the revisionists on the program of building socialism, the great leader published the historic work Every Effort for the Country's Reunification and Independence and for Socialist Construction in the Northern Half of the Republic that clarified the character and tasks of the Korean Revolution. Under the wise and energetic guidance of the great leader, Korea fulfilled in a short span of 4 to 5 years the socialist revolution that the others had not fulfilled even in a decade. Thanks to the independent politics of the great leader, Korea neither tolerated foreign interference nor played to the tune of others, kneeling down before the foreign pressure. Witnessing the miraculous reality made by the great leader's independent politics, great Comrade Kim Jong-il confirmed that the independent politics is the lifeline of the modern politics. Constantly adhering to the independent principle in political field, great Kim Jong-il led the Korean Revolution to the way of independence. In the late 1980s and the early 1990s, socialism collapsed in the former Soviet Union and East European 22 countries, introducing reform and openness. In this period of grave trials, great Kim Jong-il demonstrated that his independent conviction does not agitate, clarifying his political conviction to defend socialism to the last. With clear political conviction in independence, he actively improved the relations with the big countries on the independent stand and solved all problems arising in the international political arena independently, under the banner of independence in the new century. It was when the DPRK was going to launch satellite Kwangmyongsong-2. As stipulated in the international treaty, the development and the use of the outer space is the legal right of all sovereign states. Nevertheless, the hostile forces pushed the situation on the Korean peninsula to the extreme, saying it is the launch of missile not satellite and insisting on their interception and sanctions. The neighboring countries laid obstacles to Korea's launch of satellite, advising self-control, independence or subjugation, confrontation or submission. The Korean peninsula was in the limelight of the world. 23. Leader Kim Jong-il saw that they sternly launched the satellite, as this is the way to exercise independent national sovereignty and cement the country's power. The independent politics of the DPRK is invariably carried forward by respected comrade Kim Jong-un. History knows many cases that strong anti-imperialist countries abandoned anti-imperialist independent stand with the change of generations. When the DPRK was in tears after losing Kim Jong-il whom they believed in as in heaven, the enemies expected system change in the DPRK. This was a wild ambition. Respected comrade Kim Jong-un stands in the van of the Korean Revolution. Respected comrade Kim Jong-un is the great statesman who does everything as Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il did, embodying their gut and spirit. In his first public speech delivered at the military parade held in celebration of the centenary of the birth of Generalissimo Kim Il-sung, respected comrade Kim Jong-un clarified his decision to march straight along the road of independence, the road of Song-un and the road of socialism, as indicated by President Kim Il-sung and General Kim Jong-il. Without strong gut, it is impossible to hold the banner. 24. Of independence in this era. Bamboos keep their straightness even after being burnt and white gems keep their color even after being broken. The independent politics in the DPRK does not tolerate any move to do harm to her supreme interests. Amidst vicious moves of the hostile forces headed by the US imperialists, the DPRK launched application satellite as she wishes against enemies' moves of war. This is attributed to the independent politics of respected comrade Kim Jong-un. Through the epoch-making events in 2012 and 2013, the world knew the essence and power of the independent politics of respected comrade Kim Jong-un who is afraid of nothing. The fair public opinions tell that no power can control the DPRK self-defensive measures and the sanctions that had effects in other countries do not have any meaning in the DPRK and that the imperialist forces have no other option but to compromise with the DPRK. The DPRK became political giant that neither retreats in the confrontation with the imperialist superpower nor moves before the pressure of the big powers. This is attributed to the fact that she has advanced under the leadership of peerlessly great men, the masters of the independent politics. 25. A century ago, Korea was in a miserable status of colonized weak country, suffering from flunkyism and dogmatism. A French cartoonist painted Korea as a ground of competition of big powers, a century ago, symbolizing her as fish called Korea in the river water where the big neighboring powers vied with each other to catch, with fishing rods. Korea has as same nation and geographical position as before. It is historic miracle that she became independent power recognized by the world as today. This drastic turn proves the profound truth that the people become great and the country becomes powerful, when they have the great leader who makes the people strong in political conviction and gut and defends the national sovereignty and dignity by the help of the independent politics. The DPRK is ever victorious with the independent politics in the world arena. And the anti-imperialist independent countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, and many other progressive countries follow the road they have chosen, defending their national interests amidst ever-increasing imperialist moves for sanctions, threats and obstacles. This is due to the fact that they follow the independent politics. 26. This experience encourages many other countries to aspire after the independent politics and follow the road of independence. To enforce the independent politics, each country should decide and implement policy independently according to their own decision with their own guiding ideology. What is the main in politics is to define and implement policies. When all policies are defined and implemented independently, the politics can be independent. If a country plays to the tune of others without considering the people's demand and the country's situation in policy making, it will go to ruin. In the independent politics, it is important to exercise complete sovereignty and equal rights in external relations. The independence of a state finds its expression in external relations. It is fundamental issue in ensuring political independence to exercise complete sovereignty and equal rights in external relations. Sovereignty is the sacred right of all countries and nations. There are big or small and economically developed or backward countries, but all countries and nations are equal and independent. We must not infringe upon others' sovereignty or tolerate our sovereignty to be infringed upon. 27. African countries accepted multi-party system. The U.S. imperialists imposed multi-party system upon African countries, propagating it as the best way for ensuring democracy. The multi-party system is a cunning accelerator that causes antagonism, division, and conflict, destroying the unity of the progressive peoples and trap that spoils the destiny of a country and nation. Ignorant of the reactionary nature of the multi-party system, some African countries failing to maintain independent stand in external relations knelt down before the Western countries that imposed multi-party system under the strings of economic aid. Those countries that introduced the multi-party system became miserable. In these countries, the ruling parties became opposition parties, and those presidents who advocated for the building of a new society were expelled from presidential offices in a tragic way, causing social disorder and chaos, economic deterioration and ethnic disputes. Now many countries that suffered from the multi-party system are fighting against it under the banner of independence. A president of Africa warned the Western countries. 28. Not to interfere in his political system, saying his country does not need to wear the wrong suit. This is right. If a man wears the wrong dress, he becomes puppet, and if a country wears the wrong suit, the whole country becomes puppet. The independent principle is the truth that always wins. Victory is in store for the countries that maintain the independent politics constantly, even in the complicated world political situations. 3. Economic crisis and its solution. The recent economy of the capitalist world is very unstable. The economic crisis started a few years ago in the housing markets that constituted a pillar of the U.S. consumption markets, and a center of speculation and gambling led to the sharp rise of oil price and destruction of big monopoly banks, totally destroying economic chains. Even now, the overall capitalist countries suffer from serious economic and financial crises. Due to the grave economic situation and food crisis, 1.2 billion people face the threat of starvation in 2009. 29. In this era that witnesses rapid development of science, technology, and civilization, 1 out of 6 people starves. This is unbelievable. The economic crisis inevitably comes from the nature of the capitalist economy. The present capitalist economic crisis, however, is much bigger than before. The U.S. magazine Time mentioned the capitalists became the most dangerous enemy of themselves under the title "How to Save Capitalism." A French analyst of a stock company stated the point is to reform capitalism. This is the recognition of the limit of capitalism. The economic tsunami, the crisis that sweeps over the capitalist world, has its root in unfair capitalist economy. The capitalist economy is profit-making and liberalization economy. This economy that demands liberalism and is based on individualism inevitably results in spontaneity and disorder in the economic life. This causes the cheating and speculation among the businessmen. The international monetary and financial dollar-based system tells this. The U.S. established this system in July 1944, on the basis of Bretton Woods Agreement, the International Monetary Accord favorable for the role of U.S. dollar, in order to intensify exploitation and pillage on a worldwide scale, using the world market as a 30. National market. This being the case, the change of value and instability of credit of U.S. dollar, the currency of a country, leads to the worldwide financial crisis. In reality, the after effect of the world financial crisis started in the U.S. in 2008 had influence upon Europe. As a result, Greece, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Cyprus, and other countries suffered from debt crisis. After all, when the U.S. economy sneezes, the world economy gets cold. This tells the weakness of the capitalist economic system depending on the U.S. It is impossible to cure the chronic disease of the capitalist economy, until and unless the unfair dollar-based capitalist economic system and the corrupt and contradictory capitalist economy system are removed. The society that develops economy in a smooth and rapid way is the socialist society, where the people become masters and manage the economy in a planned and scientific way. Many people cannot help admiring the leaping development of the DPRK that makes general march towards the building of an economic giant, making industrial revolution in a new century for the building of a thriving socialist country. 31. The secret of the DPRK that develops economy without agitating before any economic upheavals is that she had built the independent national economy. An independent national economy means an economy which is free from dependence on others and which stands on its own feet, an economy which serves one's own people and develops with the resources of one's own country and by the efforts of one's own people. Such an economy makes it possible to develop the productive forces and improve the people's living standard. It is vital to build an independent national economy, particularly in those countries which were backward economically and technically because of imperialist colonial rule in the past. The imperialists try to subordinate other countries economically. This being the case, without building the independent national economy, we cannot be completely free from the imperialist domination and subjugation. It is not so easy to build the independent national economy for the economically and technically less developed countries that had been handed over the backward and deformed economy. If we do not build the independent national economy, however, we will remain in the backward state forever, in begging status. To avoid this, we must build the independent national. 32. Economy at any cost. No cross, no crown. When we build the independent national economy, we can enjoy better life, defending national dignity. In order to build an independent national economy, it is essential to adhere to the principle of self-reliance in economic construction. Self-reliance enables one to build the independent national economy in any adversity. The heroic fighting spirit that sparked Kolyma upsurge movement in the DPRK after the war was the fruit of self-reliance. In that period, the DPRK was short of fund, raw materials, and labor power, with low standard of living. Some people claimed to delay the development in defeatism and some others expected foreign aid. In this situation, the Korean working class and people overcame all difficulties, creating the new and tapping reserves in the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance, learning after the fighting spirit of the anti-Japanese revolutionary fighters who defeated the enemy with the self-made bombs. Self-reliance made them produce electric locomotives, cranes, excavators, bulldozers and large-size machine tools in a short span of time with their own raw materials, techniques, and by their own strength. Workers in the 33. Small and medium-sized factories displayed the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance, thus performing miracles of producing 13,000 machine tools more than the state plan in 1 year, through the let one machine tool make another movement. Recalling those days, great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung said that we could be able to ride Kolyma because we had the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance, no one helped us to mount him. Great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il led the Korean people's struggle to build a thriving country under the banner of self-reliance. On December 24, 2008, leader Kim Jong-il visited the working class in Kolyma Steel Complex and asked to spark the flames of a new revolutionary upsurge with the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance. He further said that victory in the building of a thriving country is in store for our people who have the spirit of self-reliance and inexhaustible creative ability, although there are difficulties. In January 2009, he asked to hold the slogan "Self-reliance is the only way out," adding that we must spark the flames of a new revolutionary upsurge and open the door of the thriving country with self-reliance. With the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance, the Korean 34. People are now confidently taking the shortcut to the building of a thriving country. If an independent national economy is to be built, the economy must be developed in a diversified and integral manner. People need numerous varieties of commodity. To meet their need, economy must have all economic sectors. the economy devoid of a highly developed sector or process cannot make rapid and stable development. In the mid-1950s, the modern revisionists tried to impose their policy upon the DPRK, resorting to arbitrariness in the world socialist movement. The main line of the DPRK socialist economic construction was to simultaneously develop light industry and agriculture while giving priority to the development of heavy industry. They blamed this line, saying it was impossible in Korea where everything became ashes because of war. They claimed it was too early and expensive to produce modern machines in Korea, recommending her to buy the machines, producing only raw materials. If we had tapped and sold out mineral ores as they asked, we could not be free from the backward status forever, with only empty tunnels left. And if we were to industrialize and rehabilitate techniques, it would take 35 several decades and we were not able to build the independent national economy. After all, this was a grave key issue that decides independence or subjugation. If the DPRK had followed their policy at that time, she could not have escaped the same destiny of the fall of socialism as the former Soviet Union and East European countries had undergone. There is no other choice but to develop the economy in a diversified and comprehensive way so that it can mainly produce what it needs, in order to develop the economy on a stable basis against world economic crisis. Equipping the economy with modern techniques and training the nation's technical cadres on an extensive scale are indispensable for the building of an independent national economy. Many countries have rich natural resources, but they could not actively tap them but sold out raw materials or semi-products at a cheap price because of lack of their own techniques. On the contrary, they import machines and other commodities at expensive price. To be free from this unequal status, it is important to solve the technical problems and on this basis develop the economy. This is the era of science and technology, the era of IT industry. In the 21st century, the material wealth is created and society developed by intellectual labor. In 36. The past century, the main in distributing the material wealth was the possession of the means of production. In this century, the point is the possession of think tank. This tells that the training of the nation's technical cadres is important in the building of an independent national economy. Depending on foreign technicians, it is impossible to build the economy that serves the people and depends on their strength. In general, science and technology develop through certain stages of development. But if we go through all these stages, we cannot overtake others forever. In order to overtake others in a short span of time, the DPRK develops the cutting-edge technology, boldly skipping the stages of development. The scientists and workers in the DPRK discovered the method of producing iron with anthracite bountiful in the country, instead of using coke coal. On this basis, Songjin Steel Complex and Kolyma Steel Complex and other steel production plants introduced the production system of Juche iron. This is a great revolution in the development of the metallurgical industry. In the agricultural field, they cultivated high-yield varieties of grain including hybrid rice suiting to their condition, introduced new organic farming method and the ring cyclic production system, etc. to establish scientific 37. Farming method and techniques that meet the requirement of the new era. The reality tells that the economy can successfully develop only when training the national technical personnel. In order to build an independent national economy, it is necessary to establish reliable and independent bases of raw materials and fuel. Without them, one cannot produce anything. Depending on others for raw materials and fuel is the same as leaving one's economic lifeline in the hands of others. One must supply the raw materials and fuel that are required in large amount by one's own. To this end, one must exploit the natural resources of one's country to the maximum and utilize them rationally and, at the same time, develop the industry to be oriented to the one which relies on domestic raw materials and fuel from the outset. What must be clear here is that the building of an independent national economy is not contrary to the international economic cooperation. Building an independent national economy does not mean building an economy in isolation. An independent national economy is opposed to economic domination and subjugation by foreign countries, but it does not rule out international. 38. Economic cooperation. Close economic and technical cooperation and exchange among the developing nations, in particular, plays an important part in ensuring economic self-sufficiency in these countries and in increasing their economic power. The developing countries are fighting against the imperialist policy of aggression and pillage to set up a new fair international economic order, defending their sovereignty and natural resources and putting an end to the old economic order. These countries share the same goal of independence, a lot of human and material resources and good experience and techniques. If they cooperate, they can possibly build the economy, without the help of the developed countries. Each country must have economic cooperation on an equal footing on the basis of the firm independent national economy. The building of an independent national economy leads the country to prosperity, free from economic domination and subjugation of the foreign forces. 39. 4. The lesson of Kosovo War. Kosovo War that was started by the US and the NATO on March 24, 1999 lasted for 78 days. In this period, the NATO launched over 2000 cruise missiles and mobilized more than 1,200 planes, recording 25,000 sorties to commit indiscriminate air raid. This killed about 2,000 innocent peaceful civilians, injured about 6,000 and caused over 1 million refugees. The former Yugoslavia had material and cultural damages worth of about 100 billion USD. She knelt down before the imperialists at last, recognized the autonomy of Kosovo according to the imperialists' Rambouillet plan and withdrew, leaving her land with them. Milosevic, the former president who had been recognized as anti-imperialist fighter, was accused of a war criminal in the International Tribunal and was doomed to death. Kosovo War eloquently tells that we must build strong defensive power to counter the arms with arms. It is the nature of man to defend himself. To this end, one must build his power. Without power, one will be a kidding stock. So is the case with a country. With strong national power, one can defend the people's safety against the enemy. 40. Yugoslavia was hit unilaterally, because she had no anti-aircraft forces and missiles to attack the enemy's bombers at the latitude of 12,000 meters, the enemy's airfield 300 kilometers away and the U.S. aircraft carriers stationed in the Adriatic Sea. In Kosovo War imposed by the U.S. and the NATO, Yugoslavia had no other measure than defense. She dealt with the enemy's air raid, using her anti-aircraft system and mobilized 150,000 ground forces to check the enemy's ground forces. In this war, the Yugoslavian people countered the enemy with human shield, kidding their air raid with romantic humors. Calling the siren Serbian National Orchestra, they encouraged their army men who made anti-aircraft fire and encircled bridges and other necessary buildings hands in hands and shoulder to defend them from the air raid. This, however, did not work, as these were the resistance of the weak. The imperialists including the US and the NATO made indiscriminate air and missile raid upon factories, cities, schools, hospitals, running buses, ambulance vehicles, and even on refugee procession, killing numerous peaceful civilians. If the former Yugoslavian army had made active counterattack, it could have defended its national. 41. Sovereignty, avoiding the severe disasters. A Yugoslavian of high ranking drew a lesson lately, saying we badly felt the necessity of strengthening the self-defensive military power through this war. I lamented over the fact that the neighboring countries joined the NATO and Russia turned away its face. The conclusion is to cement our own military power. This is the only way out. If we have weak fists, we must wipe our tears with those fists. This gives serious lesson that the inability to defend himself leads to miserable fate. The people's struggle to shape their destiny is a fierce struggle that accompanies showdown of power with the imperialists and counter-revolutionary forces. As a matter of fact, the imperialists have the nature of aggression and pillage and resort to power as an important means for its materialization. This nature to press and dominate other countries by the help of power becomes more overt at present. The US imperialist cannot do anything to the strong countries but commit military aggression to the weak countries that go against it. Leading the NATO, the US imperialists started Kosovo War, making air raid on Yugoslavia, as she had weak military power. It is necessary to strengthen military power, in order 42. To defend national sovereignty and the people's destiny. We must build our own military power on the stand of defending the country with our own efforts, not depending on others. In other words, we must maintain the stand of building powerful defense power and solving all problems arising in the building of defense power and military affairs in the interests of our people according to our concrete situation. This is the fundamental principle for building an independent sovereign state. As long as there are imperialists, a country must have self-defensive power to defend her people and territory. Otherwise, the country is not completely independent sovereign state. To strengthen self-defensive military power, we must, first of all, strengthen the army. Army is inseparably linked with war. War is an organized struggle made by a class, a nation, or a state to realize its demand, depending on special means of violence. At present, the arbitrariness and unilateralism of the US that dreams of the world supremacy have gone to the extreme. It arrogantly thinks that strong US does not need to study others' face or be bound by international organizations or international treaties. From this, the US evaluates the international stability. 43. And instability with its interests as criteria, casting aside the existing international norms and rules and conventions. The US does not hesitate to make military intervention, when it thinks its state interests are infringed. Army must be ever stronger, under the situation in which the imperialists resort to brandish military means at random, regarding it as the universal means. When we build strong army, we can defend the destiny of the country and socialism. It is important in building self-defensive military power to establish the all-people, all-state defense system. In the past, the imperialists mainly made ground offensive operations. But now, they deploy the ground forces, after having scorched the enemy's area with the preemptive strike means such as medium or long-range precision-guided weapons, the sophisticated military and technical equipment and large-size strike means. After all, the modern war is the three-dimensional war that has no distinction between the forefront and the rear. Korea has small territory with small depth of defense and is surrounded by sea on three sides. This being the situation, if war breaks out in Korea, the US imperialists will attack simultaneously on the sky, ground, and sea. 44. Therefore, it is necessary for the DPRK to strengthen the army, make all people have arms and build fortresses in all parts of the country. Only then, can she defeat the enemy everywhere. Let us make the whole country like Gyeongsang guerrilla base. This was the initiative of great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung and determination of great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il. In the first period of the anti-Japanese armed struggle, the headquarters of the Korean Revolution was situated in a small area, the Gyeongsang guerrilla base. The Japanese imperialists committed persistent scorching operation for about 90 days, mobilizing 5,000 strong elite forces in all directions. In the guerrilla base were only 2 companies. There was big difference in the military equipment and the balance of forces, but the Korean guerrillas defeated the Japanese imperialists, because great leader Kim Il-sung established unique all-people defense system. The guerrillas and people deprived the enemy of their weapons to arm themselves and built defensive facilities in all parts of the guerrilla base and fought death-defying battle in firm unity of the army and people. Even the 45 aged and children fought at the cost of their lives. The Japanese imperialists thought they could easily destroy the base with planes and guns, but the Gyeongsang guerrilla base was strongly defended to become people's nest and for the success of the Korean Revolution. In the whole period of leading the revolution under the banner of Songun, leader Kim Jong-il made energetic leadership to build Korea into invincible fortress in which all people are under arms. Now, Military affairs is concern of the whole country and the people in the DPRK. The Korean people learn military science hard and thus are prepared to defeat the aggressors once they attack. They are working with hammer and sickle in one hand and rifle in the other hand. Korean paramilitary forces had military parades on the occasions of the 90th birthday of Comrade Kim Il-sung and the 70th founding anniversary of the glorious Korean People's Army in 2002, the 60th founding anniversary of the DPRK in 2008, the 63rd founding anniversary of the DPRK in September 2011 and the 65th founding anniversary of the DPRK in September 2013. These parades demonstrated their power as invincible revolutionary forces that can independently defeat the enemy, as reliable flank units of 46. The Korean People's Army. All parts of the DPRK such as the front line, the rear, coasts and inner lands were turned into fortresses and all posts were built to meet the requirement of the modern war and according to its topographical conditions. This is recognized even by the enemy. In an interview with a newspaper pressman, the former U.S. commander in South Korea disclosed the fact that the U.S. Army tested and analyzed the effect of bunker burster, the latest laser-guided bomb that can destroy deep underground facilities by mobilizing B-2 stealth strategic bombers in Kosovo War, Yugoslavia, presupposing the contingency on the Korean peninsula. He added the power of this bomb does not work on the DPRK. Munitions industry is the material guarantee for the self-defensive military strength. Only with one's own munitions industry, can he produce weapons and combat equipment to arm the army and the people. If he depends on others in building the munitions industry, he cannot produce enough armament he needs in time or keep it secret. The imperialists try to subordinate other countries with the weapons as baits. Depending on others in building the munitions industry leads to the failure of defending the country. The modern war requires producing enough. 47. Armament with one's own efforts. The weapons and armament incomparably bigger than before are mobilized in the modern war. As far as the ammunitions are concerned, the General Arms Group consumed 200 tons of ammunitions in average a day in the offensive operations in the World War II, whereas the group consumes 4,000 tons of ammunitions a day, at present. In the Fourth Middle East War, a Syrian division fired 105,000 shells with 1,500 guns for 55 minutes at the Israeli army. In the Gulf War in 1991, for over 40 days the U.S. imperialists mobilized airplanes, that is, 11 times of those used in the Pacific War for 14 months and dropped 88,500 tons of bombs, that is, 1.5 times of the bombs dropped for 9 years in the Vietnam War. This being the case, it is important to pay the biggest attention to the building of strong munitions industry of one's own. Without this, he cannot make the modern war or defend himself. Even tightening their belt, the Korean people had built their munitions industry. Now, they have powerful offensive and defensive means to defeat enemies, whoever they are. Many foreigners admire the power of the munitions industry the Korean people built with Song'un. 48. The building of the self-reliant munitions industry must be constantly strengthened, as long as the imperialists exist. If we desire for the national prosperity, we must build self-reliant defense power, whatever difficulties. The fundamental guarantee for rise and fall of a country is in self-defensive military power. 50. 2. By applying the creative method. If a country and nation is to shape its destiny properly, we must apply the creative method, along with maintaining the independent stand. The creative stand is the one that enables us to solve all problems arising in the struggle to transform nature and society by relying on the people's strength and mobilizing them according to the actual situation. The creative stand proceeds from that all people's activities to realize independence by transforming nature and society are creative activities. In other words, we can properly shape the destiny of a country and nation and advance history, only when we maintain the creative stand, as the people's activities are creative. The principle of applying the creative method has two contents: one is the method of relying on the people, the other is to do all things according to the actual situation. Now, we come to the details. 51. 1. Among the people. In Volume 1 of With the Century, the reminiscences of great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung that evokes great repercussion among the progressive peoples over the world, you can read a quotation. Revolutionaries, believe in the people and rely on them at all times and you shall always emerge victorious. If you are forsaken by them, you will always fail. Let this be your maxim in your life and struggle. When we solve all problems arising in shaping the destiny of a country and nation by relying on the people, that is, by mobilizing their creative wisdom and strength, that country can be ever victorious. This absolute truth for shaping the destiny of a country could be discovered only by great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung, who devoted his all to the people. This truth constitutes one important content of the creative method clarified by the Juche Idea. Comrade Kim Il-sung led the revolution by relying on the people, regarding it as his life motto to go among them. He discovered the great truth of the Juche Idea that 52. Grasped the hearts of the people over the world among the people, defeated the US and Japanese imperialism and set up Juche-oriented socialist Korea by relying on them and built strong people-centered socialist country. His history was the history of love and devotion for the people and the history in which he brought about victories by relying on them. Go among the people. This is the life motto of great leader Kim Il-sung and the firm life creed of leader Kim Jong-il. This slogan can be applied only by the people's great leader who shapes the destiny of a country by relying on the people and enlisting their strength and wisdom, regarding them as the teachers and the God. Going among the people means going into their hearts. The only way for this is to have correct stand towards the people. The people open their hearts to and sincerely follow the great men who come to them to share the same destiny, regarding them as the masters of national destiny and as the makers of history. Leader Kim Jong-il always found himself among the soldiers and the people even on holidays, on sultry days and stormy days. One day in November, 1996, he arrived at a port to inspect an island defense detachment. 53. The sea weather was very wild. The strong northwest wind made high and huge waves. An official stopped him and said, "Respected Comrade Supreme Commander, you cannot go by motor boat at any cost in this weather." Leader Kim Jong-il looked at the wild sea, repeating his word at any cost. The other officials requested him to wait for the sea to calm down. At this, he answered that he had never waited for good weather. And he got in the motor boat, first. The boat ran in the wild sea. The small boat jolted so hard that the cameramen aboard broke their cameras, failing to shoot even a piece of film. Like this, he always found himself among the soldiers and the people. As a result, they worked miracles, startling the world and became heroes of the times. The people were always placed in his mind and the people were always missing him. He devoted himself to the last for the sake of the people, just like a burning candle. The whole life of the peerlessly great man is implicit. 54. In a word, people. The world witnesses that the people who had been trained by great leader Kim Il-sung and loved by leader Kim Jong-il are rising like rock in firm unity behind respected Marshal Kim Jong-un, today. Respected Marshal Kim Jong-un invariably follows the road of love for the people taken by great comrades Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Everything for the people and everything by relying on them. This slogan was set forth by respected Marshal Kim Jong-un in the New Year address of 2013. This slogan tells that his intention to make the love for and trust in the people prevail in the whole society. With this love and trust, he ushers in a new heyday of national prosperity, overcoming all difficulties. In March 2013, super tense pre-war state was created on the Korean peninsula, due to the US imperialists and the hostile forces' moves of anti-DPRK sanction resolution and war exercises. The enemy threatened the DPRK with the UN sanctions and tried to suffocate her, mobilizing its nuclear-powered aircraft carrier and other nuclear equipment and even the troops of vassal countries big enough to make a thermonuclear war in the 55. West Sea of Korea. War or peace? At this grave juncture, Respected Marshal. Kim Jong-un visited again the Island Defense Detachment, the southern tip of the Southwest Front, the hottest point within the range of the enemy's gun. It was highly dangerous spot that might be turned into the flames of war at any time. This was reported in the world. This reminded us of great comrades Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, who had devoted themselves to defending the country's sovereignty and people's happiness, regardless of any dangers. He met the officers and soldiers on the Island Defense Detachment, encouraging them to the bold will to defeat the enemy, and had photos taken with them and their family members. He gave precious gift to Jong Hang Myong, an officer's kid he had taken in his arms the year before when he had visited this island, saying that he knew the previous day was his birthday. The look of the soldiers parting with respected Kim Jong-un, who was leaving the island, was so touching. The soldiers and people jumped into the cold sea. 56. Water, shouting hurrah and shedding warm tears. This tells that they are fully determined by conviction to share bitters and sweets with Marshal Kim Jong-un. In his care, they become heroic peoples. The great leader and the great people support the DPRK today. This reality proves the truth that we can defend the national sovereignty and achieve national prosperity against all challenges of history, only when we depend on the people. What is important here is to make correct policies, reflecting the demand of the people, and make the policies their own concern. The people are the teachers of everything. Ideology and policy is the integration and systematization of the people's demand for independence. Thinking that there are philosophy, economics, and literature in the people, and regarding the people as his teacher, great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung went among the people to listen to them, recorded good opinions on his notebook to discuss in the Central Committee of the party, and finally adopted the party's policy. After setting forth the policies suiting to the people's demand, it is important to make them their own concern. Otherwise, the policies are useless, however good. 57. They are. To make them their own concern, it is necessary to make various organizational and political works. In other words, all the state policies come from the people and go into them. Only then is it possible to successfully mobilize their inexhaustible strength for shaping the destiny of a country. When Korea was making agrarian reform immediately after liberation, there was no other experience except the nationalization of the land by the people who seized the power. Some insisted on the nationalization, without considering the people's demand. Great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung went to farms and talked with the peasants to know their desire. Understanding that it was the lifelong desire of the peasants to do farming in their own lands, he set forth the slogan "Land to the Tillers," and adopted the concrete method of the agrarian reform in reflection of their desire. He set the peasants as masters of the agrarian reform. In many countries, agrarian reform took many years, suffering from turns and twists, but in Korea it was successfully finished within only 20 days, as she set forth the policy of agrarian reform reflecting the peasants' desire and turned it to their own concern. It is also important in shaping the destiny of a country depending on the people to unite the people into a 58. Political force, establish popular work method and share sweets and bitters with the people. The strength of the people is in unity. When they are united, the people can display big strength in shaping the destiny of a country. Importance of this was proved by the October Socialist Revolution won under the leadership of Lenin. Lenin united the broad masses, including the working class that opposed the domination and oppression of the capital and hated Tsar tyrannical system, into a political force and encouraged them to the socialist revolution to set up the genuine people's country, thus winning victory in the October Socialist Revolution. The inexhaustible strength of the people who were united under the leadership of Lenin brought about great victory and gave birth to the first socialist state. There is nothing impossible when we are in the ocean of the people. When we trust and depend on the people, they become the pillar of the nation and bring about prosperity. 2. Best is one's own way. In the end of August, 1980, great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung met the delegation of the Jordanian 59. National Advisory Council headed by Atara Una during its stay in the DPRK. In this honorable opportunity, the chairman of the council said that there are many socialist countries, but the Korean socialism is the example of socialism that embodied the Juche idea. With a broad smile on his face, the great leader said that they had correct understanding of the country and explained Korea's situation immediately after the liberation. At that time, the foreigners waited to see in what way the Koreans would build a new society. Recalling those days, the great leader said that we take food our own way, not the ways of the Soviet Union or the US. Our own way. This is clear answer. He further said that the Koreans take food with spoon whereas the Westerners with fork and knife. This had deep meaning. This is easy clarification made by the great leader for shaping the destiny of a country according to the concrete situation of the country. To solve all problems according to the actual situation constitutes another content of the creative method. 60. Clarified by the Juche idea. Great Comrade Kim Jong-il said, "One must always proceed from the actual situation and creatively solve all problems in conformity with it. This means to solve all problems arising in shaping the destiny of a country creatively according to the developing reality and the actual situation of a country. In other words, this means to solve all problems in one's own way. Best is one's way in shaping the destiny of a country and nation. All countries have different histories, different levels of economic development, different natural and geographical conditions, different levels of consciousness and psychology and different customs and modes of life. And they have different international circumstances. Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America have different natural and geographical conditions and political and economic conditions. The countries even in one continent have different conditions and circumstances. We have 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In different seasons, people wear different clothes and take different modes of life. 61. Likewise, the era and history is not fixed and immutable but constantly changes. The objective circumstances for shaping the destiny of a country are different in the past, at present and in the future. Accordingly, there cannot be all fit universal method. What is, then, important to solve all problems arising in shaping the destiny of a country in one's own way according to the actual situation? It is first of all important to approach the existing theory properly. The existing theories were based on the practices of the past history. Therefore, they cannot be applied as it is in the present reality. In treating them, we must consider what kind of requirement of the era they reflect and under what conditions they were evolved, and then apply them according to our concrete reality and situation. Those theories that do not fit one's own situation are useless. Dogmatic stand to the existing theory does a big harm to the shaping of destiny of a country and nation. In the anti-Japanese revolutionary struggle, there had been chaos in solving the question of type of government in the guerrilla base. This process tells that dogmatic stand to the existing theory is very harmful and that we must solve all problems according to our 62. Concrete situation. The left opportunists once established Soviet government in the guerrilla base, mechanically imitating the policy of the Soviet Union. Without considering the level of social development of Korea and the Korean people's sentiment, the flunkyists and dogmatists declared the abolition of the private property under the extremely leftist slogan of the immediate realization of socialism. They turned all the private property ranging from land and food to sickle, hoe and other farming tools into the common property and forced all the people, young and old, male and female in the guerrilla base to live under the system of the common life, common labor and common distribution. Owing to this leftist policy, many families left the guerrilla base for the enemy's area, complaining the Soviet policy. This caused big chaos difficult to settle. The cause of this chaos was the mechanical imitation of the existing theory, ignoring concrete situation of the guerrilla base. Great Comrade Kim Il-sung set forth the original policy of the People's Revolutionary Government according to the concrete situation of the development of the Korean Revolution, and thus liquidated the extremely leftist moves of the left opportunists and removed the chaos at last. 63. To liquidate the dogmatic attitude towards the existing theory does not mean the full neglecting of the things that are suitable to the present reality. Anyhow, it is wrong thinking method to always follow the past procedure. This thinking method is not in conformity with the present developing reality and the creative character of the revolutionary struggle. What is also important in solving all problems arising in shaping the destiny of a country and nation according to one's own situation is to discover new principles and ways for shaping the destiny according to the condition of the times and to the concrete situation of a country. Time does not stand still but continuously advances. The advancing time ceaselessly raises numerous new theoretical and practical problems to be urgently solved. For instance, the problems of how to restore the socialist movement that was frustrated along with the end of the Cold War, how to form the revolutionary forces under the condition of the decrease of the number of the manual workers and the increase of the numbers of the mental workers with the development of IT industry, how to deal with the more persistent and violent imperialist moves of globalization and the more serious environments, etc. This waits for the solution. What is the way of solution, then? 64. Just as new value can be evaluated by new criterion, new problems can be solved with new principles that suit the present reality. The people in each country should ceaselessly discover and apply the principles and ways of solving new problems, proceeding from its concrete situation. In the whole period of his revolutionary leadership, great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il enriched the treasure house of Kim Il-sungism with new principles and ways of solving all the theoretical and practical problems and thus illuminated the road ahead of humanity. Comprehensively setting forth the Song-un politics unique in the history of politics, great Comrade Kim Jong-il set forth the policy of building economy in the era of Song-un. The word Song-un is not available in any political dictionaries and in the history of politics. Grave situation of life or death was created in Korea, due to the imperialist anti-DPRK moves of isolation and suffocation. With deep insight into the requirement of the time and in conformity with the desire of the Korean army and people who regard independence as their life and soul, Comrade Kim Jong-il set forth Song-un as strategic political line of the Korean Revolution. He set forth the line of building the economy in the 65. Era of Song-un, that is, the simultaneous development of light industry and agriculture, while giving priority to munitions industry and thus strengthened self-defensive power. As a result, the DPRK could be invincible and powerful military country. In solving all problems arising in shaping the destiny of a country and nation, it is important to approach foreign experience in a critical and creative way. It is necessary to consider the foreign experience, because it is easier to consider it than to take the untrodden path. The question is how to consider the foreign experience. The foreign experience was made according to the situation of the country. Although it is good experience that proved vitality and validity in that country, it cannot fit others' situation. The foreign experience has both positive and negative aspects. Therefore, it is important to approach foreign experience in a critical and creative way. Normally, people taste first and then take food, and if they do not like the food, they do not take it. Like this, when we approach the foreign experience, we take it if it is good but do not take it if it is bad. 66. We cannot score success if we accept the foreign experience as a whole, without considering our own situation. It was proved by the fact that some countries that dogmatically accepted imperialists' globalization without considering their concrete situation. The goal of globalization is to make the US the only leader of the world and establish the neocolonialist international order in which the US and its subordinate imperialist countries control the world. As it is the US strategy for hegemony, it cannot be good prescription for other countries, especially for the developing countries. More so is the economic globalization vociferated loudly by the imperialists. The imperialists demand other countries to open their markets for free investment, export, and import. This will crush only the developing countries. Each country has its own economic structure and mode of management, and according to them, it sets its economic development strategy and goal. This is the only way to develop economy, relying on the strength and wisdom of its people. The developing countries need their own economic structure, economic order, and trade circumstances. If 67. They neglect them. Following globalization, they will be complete economic colony of the West. In the open markets and in the globalization, the developing countries cannot compete with the developed countries, eventually falling down. The advanced industrial states build tariff and non-tariff barriers against the export items of the developing countries and put political and economic strings, under the pretext of exempt of debt and technical aid. They turn their faces away from the interests of the developing countries, claiming liberalism only in the sectors of making their profit. The financial globalization pushed Southeast Asian countries to destructive economic crisis in the late 1990s. Talking of aid or cooperation, the US tried to dominate them, after trapping them. This is just like giving disease and then cure. Globalization is neither good prescription nor cure. Globalization will bring about only unemployment and grave destruction in the social fields like finance, trade, culture, and public health. It will increase the gap between the developed and developing countries in the development level and material wealth, obliterating national traditions and custom. If those countries that are engulfed in globalization 68 do not find out their own ways before the difficulties but follow others, they cannot escape from setbacks in the struggle to shape their destiny. It is better to find out the concrete method that suits our own situation and overcome all political and economic difficulties in our own way. Our own way, this is the best way out. We must build politics, economy, culture, and munitions industry in our own way. Only then can we achieve prosperity, without suffering from others' disease. 70. 3. Placing the main stress on ideology. The Juche Idea claims that the main stress should be placed on ideology in shaping the destiny of a country and nation. This is the principle for the struggle to achieve national prosperity by training the people to be genuine masters of the country and enhancing their role. Ideological consciousness plays decisive role in the people's struggle for independence, and all the revolutionary movements are their purposive and conscious movements. The main stress, therefore, must be placed on ideology, in order to successfully shape the destiny of a country and nation. Without placing the main stress on ideology, the driving force of socio-historical movement, we cannot score success in the revolution and construction. This principle has two contents: one is giving priority to remolding of ideology and the other is giving priority to political work. The former is to train the people to be powerful beings with high level of ideological consciousness, whereas the latter is to solve all problems by moving the 71. People's minds. Now, we come to the details. 1. Giving priority to the remolding of ideology. On the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the publication of great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il's classic work Giving Priority to Ideological Work is Essential for Accomplishing Socialism, Mexico, Juche Idea Study Society issued Bulletin Giving Priority to Ideological Work in 2010. Under its subtitle Establishing a Monolithic Ideology, the bulletin writes: on the basis of the Juche Idea created by President Kim Il-sung, the founder of the Socialist Korea, leader Kim Jong-il keeps it as his creed that the people play decisive role in the revolution and construction and that there is nothing impossible when they are ideologically awakened and mobilized. He set it as the main task of the ideological work to model the whole society on one ideology by arming all the members of the society with the socialist ideology, and led this work. The Korean people's high mentality and noble ideological traits tell the vitality of the ideological work. 72. In the DPRK, the people are united behind the leader with single mind, forming a great family and work full of conviction and optimism. Time flied since the publication of the work. As the jewel does not lose its color even though buried, a great ideology does not fade away with the passage of time but proves its scientific accuracy and validity. Great Comrade Kim Jong-il said, imbuing people with socialist ideology means an ideological struggle between the old and the new in the ideological area. It is an undertaking to transform ideology by eliminating outmoded ideas from people's minds and equipping them with the new, socialist ideology. Why, then, is it important to give priority to ideological work? That is because man should be prepared as the genuine masters of a country, in order to defend national sovereignty and build a thriving country. Man plays decisive role in shaping the destiny of a country. It is important to remold man, because it is the man, the master of a country, who builds a strong political and economic country, develops science and technology and builds a civilized country. If the people are ideologically 73 and mentally corrupted, without the awareness that they are the masters and the members of a country, that country will doubtlessly come to ruin. Without remolding man to be genuine master of a country, the independent development and the promising future of a country are inconceivable. To remold man, it is necessary to remold his ideology. The remolding of man is, in essence, the remolding of his ideology. The remolding of ideology is to arm the people with independent ideological consciousness, after removing the outdated ideas from their mind. In order to prepare the people to be powerful beings that can play their due role in the struggle to shape the destiny of a country, we must make them possess the progressive idea, wide range of science and technology and strong physical condition. What is important here is the remolding of ideology. Only with proper ideology, can people strive to possess more knowledge for the country and use it not only for themselves but for the country, nation, and humanity. Improper ideology leads to the misuse of knowledge. In the World War II, the reactionary scholars in Germany 74 and Japan made experiments on human bodies to prove the method for Holocaust. This tells that the wrong ideology leads to hampering human development and infringing upon people's independence. Like this, the remolding of ideology comes first in remolding man. When priority is given to remolding of ideology, the people can fully display their inexhaustible creative power to overcome all difficulties. Giving priority to remolding of ideology is more important in socialist society. The birth, existence, and development of socialist system are inconceivable, apart from the people who are armed with ideological consciousness of independence. The socialist ideology is born reflecting the class demand of the people who fight against the domination of the capital, and the socialist system is born and developed by the struggle of the people who are armed with the ideology. The essential characteristic of the socialist society is that it is developed by the power of ideology, that is, the conscious activities of the people who are armed with this ideology. Accordingly, the solid development of socialism depends on how to remold ideology, how to ideologically prepare the people. 75. Neglecting remolding of ideology in building socialism doubtlessly leads to the degeneration and fall of socialism, as it is the main point of socialism. This is well proved by the fall of the Soviet Union and the East European socialist countries. Of course, there are many reasons, but one of the important reasons is the neglecting of the remolding of ideology in building socialism. These countries did not pay due attention to the remolding of people's ideology, while resorting only to the economy regarding the objective material economic conditions as the decisive factor. As a result, the people did not devote themselves for the society and collective but pursued individuals' interests. That is, the collectivism was replaced with individualism. In 1982, in the private kitchen plot that accounted for 14% of the entire arable land of the Soviet Union, they produced 61% of potato, 54% of fruit, 34% of egg and 29% of meat of the national products. This fact tells that the then Soviet people had strong individualistic idea. On the basis of this ideological background and social stagnation, Gorbachev, the renegade of socialism, began to restore capitalism, vociferating new thinking method and new road to socialism. The then Soviet people's ideology was too vague to 76. Properly judge the true nature of Gorbachev. Taking this opportunity, Gorbachev accelerated the degeneration process of the socialist ideology in the mind of the people. As a result, being attracted to capitalism, the people mistrusted the party and state, complaining socialism, and at last followed reactionary elements' moves of anti-socialism blindly. When the people are armed with socialist ideology, they can propel and defend socialism, as the subject of socialist society. The people in these countries, however, were so disintegrated ideologically that they could not defend socialism before the moves of the renegades of socialism. Therefore, socialism, the desire of humanity, collapsed. This was the historical tragedy for the progressive peoples. Is socialism gone forever? The imperialist reactionaries were busy talking about the end of socialism, and the renegades of socialism claimed the socialist ideology itself was wrong. In despair and agony, the progressive people were looking at the DPRK, the last fortress of socialism. In this critical historical juncture, great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il published many classic works such as Socialism is a Science, giving priority to 77. Ideological work is essential for accomplishing socialism, and abuses of socialism are intolerable, proving the scientific accuracy and validity of socialism and inevitability of its victory. Humanity that groped for its future before temporary trial could find out the lighthouse of hope, and the world socialist movement could have a compass with which it could advance again along the road of independence. Great Comrade Kim Jong-il ideologically smashed the moves of the imperialist reactionaries who ran wild to isolate the DPRK, even talking about its early fall, and defended the Korean socialism. He cemented the ideological fortress by all means through overall offensive in the ideological field, under the condition that the enemies viciously committed ideological and cultural moves in addition of isolation and blockade. It is his motto that the fall of the ideological fortress leads to the fall of economic and military power, and at last to the fall of socialism, and that the ideology has no limit, whereas the military attack has limits, and the ideological power is stronger than atomic bomb. He paid deep attention to the ideological education to make the people grasp the validity and superiority of socialism and enhance their position and role as the 78 masters of society. We win if socialism is defended, but die if it is abandoned. This is the strong faith of the Korean people. The Korean people who kept socialism as the life and soul worked in factories and did farming in the spirit of self-reliance, even taking substitute food made from grassroot and tree barks in the days of the arduous march and the forced march. In those days, the Korean people's mentality was cemented, and the entire people rose as rock with the firm determination of fulfilling the revolution to turn the unfavorable into the favorable, and thus defended socialism and built the springboard for building a thriving socialist country. The experience of the DPRK proves that ideology decides everything, and that there is nothing impossible in the world when the people are ideologically prepared. Giving priority to remolding of ideology does not confine itself only to socialist countries. All the countries that desire after social prosperity and progress should give priority to the ideological work. Some countries, however, are still tilted to the building of economy, neglecting the remolding of man and remolding of ideology. These countries try to move 79 the people by the method of strengthening material incentives, giving priority to economic factors rather than ideology. It is not money or a nuclear weapon that moves the world, but people's ideology. Ideology can control the world. The people who are ideologically and mentally disintegrated cannot save the destiny of their country, though with strong military power. The fall of Iraq in the war provoked by the U.S. imperialists in March 2003 was not because of lack of the modern weapon, but because the army and people were ideologically degenerated by the U.S. cunning psychological warfare. During the period of Iraqi war, the U.S. spread 28 million leaflets and spent huge amount of money to set up broadcasting station to broadcast 17 hours daily in 5 Hz. Through leaflets and radio, the U.S. propagated that Iraqi people cannot escape death if they do not welcome it and fight against Saddam, and that it is fighting to give liberty to the Iraqi people against Saddam's dictatorship. Along with this, the U.S. approached Iraqi generals through different routes to win over them, saying that if they surrender, they can hold U.S. passport and lead comfortable life. 80. The U.S. succeeded. The pivot of Iraqi army was disintegrated and the soldiers were ordered not to resist. The U.S. army and generals escaped in defeatism, leaving the soldiers behind. Iraqi people even welcomed the aggressors as liberators. History tells that if we fail to give priority to ideology in shaping the destiny of the people, we cannot avoid setback. If the people are ideologically awakened to be strong in ideology and conviction, they have nothing to fear. That Socialist Korea has been ever victorious in the war without firing against the US that boasts itself of the only superpower is victory of ideology and conviction, and that she makes leap in the building of a thriving country amidst ever-increasing sanction, blockade, pressure, and blackmail is the miracle created by the Korean people's indomitable mentality. This historic miracle is inconceivable, apart from the leadership of the peerlessly great men who trained the Korean people to be strong in ideology and conviction, by giving priority to the remolding of ideology. In its bulletin giving priority to ideological work, Mexico organization stressed the route the DPRK has traversed for 15 years after the publication of the work eloquently proves the validity. 81. Of ideology and theory of leader Kim Jong-il. Korea, small in size and population, has been divided for over half a century because of the US. But it could defend socialism without agitation even in the grave situation in the late 20th century. This was possible because she gave priority to ideological work, regarding it as the main. Giving full play to the invincible mentality of the army and the people who defend socialism with the power of ideology, the DPRK performs a miracle after another in building a thriving country. The work of leader Kim Jong-il is the programmatic guideline to be adhered to not only by the Korean people but also by all the countries and parties that aspire after socialism. Even a powerful country falls, if she has not strong ideology and conviction. The country with indomitable ideological power has a bright future and will prosper, though coming across temporary trials. 2. The first siren of the ship at Tangkon Port. On May 3, 2012, Tangkon Port was inaugurated in Tangkon, South Hamgyong Province, Korea. After the inauguration, a cargo ship Piri Yugong left. 82. Tangkon Port, blowing a siren. Listening to the siren, the port builders and the participants in the inauguration ceremony emotionally recalled great leader Comrade Kim Jong-il, who asked them that siren should be blown in Tangkon Port on the occasion of the Day of the Sun, the 100th birthday of President Kim Il-sung, saying that he would attend the inauguration ceremony. Tangkon Port has a story. The port builders had to fight the wild sea and dig out huge amount of sand in the seabed. It was a grand nature remaking project. The Japanese imperialists who occupied Korea began to build the port in the latter part of the 1930s to plunder the natural resources in Kamdok area, but had to give up the project because of unfavorable building conditions. Since the 1970s, when magnesite industry was boosted, the building of Tangkon Port was pressing task to develop the national economy. If the port is built, magnesia clinker and zinc produced in Tangkon area can be exported by sea. The people concerned had a lot of serious consultations for the project but suspended the project, failing to find the realistic ways of building. In the latter part of the 1990s, this project was on the topic again, but 83. Many people thought that the country's situation was not good enough to build Tangkon Port, daring not to begin the project. It was leader Kim Jong-il who initiated and wisely led the project. Saying that it is his decision to make the people who had trials only following the party happy by building modern trade port in Tangkon area, he ordered the officials and building shock brigades to blow the first ship siren in Tangkon Port by 2012. On many occasions, he inspected the project site and kindled the flames in the hearts of the officials and builders. Highly appreciating them as brave conquerors and heroes, he said he believed that they would finish the arduous project at any cost. He taught the secret of breakwater project and other concrete ways and means, primarily solving the problems in the project. There is nothing impossible when their ideology is moved, and love and trust lead to loyalty. His appreciation of and trust in the builders served as the driving force, his teachings as the key to accelerating the project, and his benevolent measures as the source of the speeding up of the project. The port builders set brave goal of completing the 84. project in 3 years, disregarding the existing formula of 10 years project that the Japanese imperialists gave up, and conquered nature by mobilizing and concentrating all efforts. The scientists and technicians boldly introduced new technical building methods of their style by cooperating their creative talents and strength, and completed huge and the most arduous project of building breakwater and wharf in over 1 year. The divers did not hesitate to dive in the cold winter water to proceed with the sea bedding project, and the builders recorded high speed in tunneling and other buildings, overcoming unfavorable natural conditions with strong will. As a result, the builders made it possible to blow the first ship siren in the port on the occasion of the 100th birthday of President Kim Il-sung, true to the behests of leader Kim Jong-il. Tangkon Port was wonderfully built as a modern trade port. It is the great project made by the wise guidance of leader Kim Jong-il, who trained the performers of miracles by kindling flames in the hearts of the builders. Kindling flames in the hearts of the people is the political work. In order to successfully shape the destiny of a country, it is necessary to give priority to the political work. 85. Giving priority to political work means to make the people understand the goal, significance, ways, and means so that they play active role with self-awareness. Great Comrade Kim Jong-il said, "For a successful implementation of the revolutionary tasks, political work aimed at educating and rousing the people into action, should be given priority over all other work. In one word, political work is the work with the people. In other words, it is the work aimed at educating the people and stimulating their ideology. People do everything, and for this, their ideology should be stimulated. But man's ideology does not move of its own accord. As a car can move when the engine starts, man's ideology should be stimulated so that it can push ahead with his action. Then, what is important to give priority to political work? Political work should be done in the way of persuasion and education. This means to make people understand in a heuristic way so that they voluntarily do the job. We cannot move people in the way of giving orders and shouting. In this case they are forced to move so, but they cannot display creative initiatives. 86. 240,000 full-time political workers in the Soviet Army encouraged the soldiers to the sacred war to defend the country and socialism in the way of persuasion and education. We can think of the fierce battle to hoist the red flag on the Berlin Parliament building, the last fortress of Hitler. This battle was under the charge of 150th Infantry Division of the Soviet Army. This division had to go through all difficulties since its retreat to reach German parliamentary building. Hoisting the red flag on the building meant the end of the war. It was the final battle, after which they could return dear home and family. The soldiers' mind was heavy, and even the officers hardly raised their heads when enemy's bullets were flying over. The point was to encourage the soldiers to the final battle. The division commander stood up before the soldiers. "This is the last battle. Many comrades in arms passed away. In their names plus ours, we must hoist the flag on the top of the Parliament building. For this, we should be prepared to die. We came here at last and cannot ask any others to hoist the flag. We must occupy the building at any cost." 87. He reminded the soldiers of a fierce battle. And he continued. At that time, 150 guns of various kinds, 40 tanks, and 6 flying squadrons per 1 kilometer of the front line supported us. Comrades, please calculate yourselves, as you are experienced fighters. Now our division can get support by 400 guns, 250 tanks, and as many planes as we want per 1 kilometer of our front. The soldiers understood what the density of the fire meant. They also understood how much the party and country value them. They sensed that no enemy could survive in this battle. "Comrade Commander, please give us order immediately. We will finish it at once." The soldier's heart was moved. All rose in the battle. The division made general offensive and put up the red flag on the top of the parliamentary building. The political work done just before the final battle proved its merit. Next, the political work should be done in a diversified way according to the concrete situation. Political work has as its object the people in different levels who work in different conditions and circumstances. The object includes workers, peasants, scientists and 88. Technicians. Again, among workers are coal miners, lumbermen, or miners. And they share different ages, sexes, level of education, hobbies, and characters. This being the case, the political work should be done in a diversified way according to the concrete situation and circumstances for the success. The political work should be done in close combination with the revolutionary practice. The main goal of the political work is to successfully fulfill the tasks. The political work apart from the practice is useless. The success of the political work should be evaluated practically. In the DPRK, they created Coal Lima movement, surprising the world people. They had a lot of difficulties at the time when they built the foundations of socialism after fulfilling the 3-year plan to restore the economy devastated by the war. They had to find a way of overcoming the difficulties. Always believing the people's strength, great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung visited the working class in Kangsan steel plant and explained the grave difficulties of the country and appealed upon their hearts to produce 10,000 tons of steel more to make the country straighten its waist. 89. Responding to his appeal, the workers decided to produce 90,000 tons of steel in the blooming mill with the capacity of 60,000 tons and at last produced 120,000 tons of steel. The flames kindled by President Kim Il-sung spread across the country and Coal Lima movement began. The political work done by President Kim Il-sung through dialogue with the working class to overcome the difficulties was the noble example that proved that they can solve any difficult problems arising in the revolutionary practice, when they give priority to the political work. Thanks to the flames kindled by the president in the hearts of the Korean people, Korea could rise again in a short span of 3 years on the post-war debris, depending on the people's high enthusiasm and creative initiatives. Kindle the flame in the hearts of the people. When the political work is given priority to move the heart of the people, there is nothing impossible in the world. The Fundamentals of Rise and Fall of Country and Nation. Author, Sin Hyun-suk, Kim Chang-cheong. Publisher, Foreign Languages Publishing. House, the DPRK. Issued, April, Juche 103, 4835016. Email, flph@starco.net.kp http://www.nainara.com.kp